So today I'm going to turn a small hollow form, and I'm going to do a little bit of texturing and coloring to the outside of it. So this is just a 6-inch diameter by 3-inch thick piece of cottonwood. So the first thing I'm going to do is true up the outside of it. Alright, so now that I have that pretty well balanced, I want to turn a tenon on this end so that I can mount it in my chuck. Alright, so that's deep enough for the tenon. Now I'm just going to come in with a skew just to kind of sharpen the edge. Alright, so now that the tenon's done, I'm going to start shaping the bottom half of the hollow form. Alright, so that's it for shaping while it's mounted this way in the chuck. I just want to get it flipped around to the tenon and then I'll finish shaping it out. Alright, I think that's about the profile that I'm looking for, so next thing I want to do is get this hollowed out. Alright, so to start hollowing it out, I'm going to pre-drill a starter hole to make it a little easier. Alright, so that's enough for drilling out a starter hole. So now I just got to get my hollowing set up, and we'll get to hollowing the inside of this out. Alright, so I'm going to be using a simple hollowing system that I recently purchased. It's not to replace my larger one, but for smaller things like this, it's just a lot easier to set up and maneuver and stuff. Alright, so that's it for hollowing it out. The next thing I want to do is I need to get the outside sanded down a little bit and then reverse chuck it so that I can turn that tenon off and finish the entire vessel. And then I'll get to carving it and get some color on it. Alright, so I have this reverse mounted in my 3D printed chuck jaws. So I want to finish off the bottom. I kind of want to like taper this all the way in and make a really narrow foot on this. So I'm going to turn into the tenon. Alright, so now that I backed the tailstock away, I want to take just very light cuts with this. These chuck jaws are fairly secure, but I don't want to accidentally knock this out. Alright, so now all I just have to do is a little bit of sanding to blend that all in, and this will be ready to lay out and carve. Alright, so to do my layout, the only line I really need is a center line at the widest point. Now I'm ready to take this out of the chuck and then draw my starter line. So I'm just going to do a repeating pattern around the entire turning. So all I need to do is make my starter ridge, and then I'll just use my cutting burr to match up to each one of those. So I'm going to eyeball where the center is. Go like that, and then eyeball where the center is there. So we're just going to make that little bit of a V pattern and follow it all the way around. Alright, so now that I have the layout all set up, I'm at my embellishing desk and I'm going to start carving this thing down. So I'm using an extra fine sphere spur. I think this one is 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to pick one side of the line. And just work my way down, trying to go as straight as I can. So I'll just do this all the way around for the top, and then I'll flip it over and go from the underside. I'm just going to now take my next cut up to the first ridge of my first cut. Alright, so I'll just continue it all the way around, and once I'm done I will show you what the completed texture looks like. Alright, so it's all carved. I didn't exactly get the pattern that I wanted. I wanted it to be an equal pattern all the way around, but it seemed like the curve got greater as I went around, so I had a little bit of a change up that I did where the two pieces meet. So the next thing I need to do is hit this with a defuzzing tool. It's basically a little Scotch-Brite disc that'll just take off all the little furry stuff. So now that it's all defuzzed, I just need to get a base coat of flat black paint on it, and then we can start to do some dry brushing on it. Alright, so now that I have it all carved out, the next thing I want to do is I want to put a coat of flat black paint on it. I'm using this chalk paint because it's extremely flat. And I'm just using a 1-inch chipping brush to apply it. So I'm not too worried about getting it on the immediate bottom. I can just sand it back. This paint doesn't really soak into the wood very much. Alright, so now that I have the whole thing painted and blacked out, I just have to let this paint dry, and then I'll be ready to add some color and do some dry brushing on it. Alright, so now that everything is all blacked out and the paint is dried, I'm going to start adding some color to this turning. So I'm going to start off with my darkest color, which is a dark red. So when you're dry brushing, it doesn't take a lot of paint to do it. So all I need is just a little dollop for now, and I'll add more if I need it. So I'm going to load the brush. And basically just brush it out until I barely have any paint left on the brush. And then I'm just going to lightly brush over. Making sure not to press down too much, because I want to leave some black in between everything. It's better to do a bunch of light passes with this than to try to do something really heavy. Alright, so I'll just continue to go around like that until I get the color depth that I want, and then I'll switch to the next color. Alright, so now that I have that first darker red down, I'm going to come in with a little bit of a brighter red. So I'm going to brush a little bit over top of this, and I'm not going to push it down as far into the grooves as I did with the first one. Do the same thing. I'm going to load the brush with just enough paint. Alright, now I'm going to flip it over and do the same to the bottom side. Alright, I think that's it for the red, so now I'm going to switch over to a bright yellow. Alright, so I let the red dry, and now I am going to come in with a yellow to kind of blend from the center line in both directions. Alright, so I'll let that yellow dry for a little bit, and then I'll come back and add a second layer on. Alright, so the yellow is all done. The last thing I want to do is I just want to add a little bit of a metallic copper around the opening and around the base. Alright, so now I'm just going to let this paint dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to come up with some sandpaper and just clean off the base and clean up around the inside of the opening, and this will be all done.